Welcome to Town Hall 79, Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022. And we've got an exciting talk about crypto that we're going to talk about today. So let's move on to the next slide. All right. And as always, we have Mike Lawson with us, my very good friend, longtime friend. Mike, we're going on 20 years. You realize that?
At least, yeah.
Yeah. We're close to 20 years. I think I met you in 2003.
Somewhere in there. Your WRG days.
And we have, it's one of those things where Mike and I have traveled the world together. We've been
literally
together. Yeah. We've been to Austria together. I got
Singapore.
to watch him host. Singapore. I remember that rickshaw that you ran for a while. That was awesome.
Yes, I pulled you around town. That was great.
Yeah. He ran out of money about midway through, and so we worked out a deal.
Had to find a way to get home.
Anyway, so it's great to have Mike here, and I am John Best, CEO, co-founder of Best Innovation Group. Let's get to our sponsors. And for those of you that don't know who CUNA is, I imagine everybody does. And quick, Mike, when was CUNA founded?
When was CUNA founded?
A little history, yeah.
I don't know. I'm assuming quite a while ago, but I don't know that. Do you?
I do. Yeah, I do.
I know the facts.
Because they made me take a class in this sort of thing.
Oh, wow.
And when I worked at Suncoast, it was actually founded in 1940. And you know where it was founded?
Madison,
Alan,
Wisconsin.
do you know by chance?
Oh, sorry.
No, not Madison, Wisconsin. No idea. There was a meeting of all the Crayons at the time in 1940, just around the Depression after the breakdown at Estes Park in Colorado. And that is where CUNA was formed. So CUNA's been around a long time. That's my point. And for those of you that don't know, go check out CUNA.org. They're ramping up all of their conferences. I think I'm already booked to speak at a couple, if I remember right. One of them I think is HR, and I got a lot of things for HR. They're gonna regret that.
HR, really?
Like, oh, last person we should invite to an HR conference is John. He's an HR nightmare. But so go and check it out at CUNA. And you want to take correlation?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm a little distracted. Correlation. If you are looking for a new data core processor, correlations, folks to check out, open architecture system allowing you to work with any type of third-party vendor pretty much. And good stuff. Doing stuff with Linux as well. So, they are one of the forefronts, one of the pioneers in this area for core processing for Creighton's out there. And they are on a roll for good reason, because there are good people there and good technology and doing some good stuff for Creighton's out there in the core processing area.
Absolutely. Plus, I hear their solution cures COVID. I'm not 100% sure, but that's.
Oh, really? I'll have to check in on that.
Like a vaccine. Hey, guess what? Member Pass is moving along, and I'm actually going to be at GAC this year. That's right. I'm going to show up. I have not been out of the house for a long time. My first out of the house was to visit Alan. And I just got back from LA, a little short tour there where I got to go to the Intellivision Secret Lair, which I'll show a few things from that at some point. But I'm going to go to JC. John Ainsworth and I are talking through several things that are happening at the moment in the world of CU Ledger /Bonify /Member Pass. And we'll be together. We're going to be talking about a lot of things that are going on in that space, and looking forward to hanging out with John. And we've been talking quite a bit recently, working with our friends from Vision, Cynthia Schroeder, who is full-time working on crypto at that credit union. So
yeah,
very excited.
I heard that too. Yeah.
And then there's the last two. Let's just skip them. Everybody knows who we are. Let's just move along. What do you say? Deal?
Let's talk crypto crash, shall we?
Let's do it. So Glenn, I'll let you take it away. I know we've got Ron here.
We got one more.
He's coming up next week. How did we convince him?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's right. How did we convince Ron to show up? I think
I buttered him up on Twitter.
You twittered him
sincerely though, because he wrote a great article. We got the link here, and we should put that in the chat too if it's easier for people to access that way. About the problem with Google Pay, where he basically talks about kind of the disjointed product strategy that Google has had around Googleplex and whatnot, and mentioned that I didn't agree with everything he said, but I thought that everything he said was extremely well thought through and therefore worth reading. And when I said, hey, by the way, we've got an opportunity for you guys to talk, it was, this one actually to me read more like a standard, almost analyst report. I mean, he worked the snark in, but it was very factually driven. So he agreed to come on, and 2 weeks, we're now on a 2 week cadence on these. he'll be joining us, and it would be great if people read the article. If you haven't already, I would definitely recommend it. It's not that long. Probably takes you about 10-15 minutes. And I think it'd be great to dig in to see what he's got to say and follow up on any questions you might have about where Google stands in the payments world.
Got it. All right. February 16th, mark your calendar. Next one. Hey, guess what? Glenn, if that is your real name. We are working on something here. And Alan, I would love for you guys, you're actually already participating in this. I forgot about that. Chris has been one of the guys who've helped lead on this. But what this is a free site where if you're a credit union, you can go in, you can get the parameters for a report. And that report is to help you identify what's going in and out of your credit union from a crypto standpoint. And what we're trying to do is get all that collected together so that we can put together an industry document on, what the members are doing with crypto, understanding, one of the examples is we've been mapping crypto pricing, which we're about to talk about, to the in and out and the throughput to see how that affects it. It could be something that you need to discuss at ALCO going in. You may, just like when bonuses are coming in for your members, you may need to think about crypto prices and whether or not people are going to be buying on the dip or what's going on there. So we really encourage you. It's free. It doesn't cost a penny. You can go sign up right now. It's www.cu Crypto Report. I'm pretty sure that Madison or somebody will put this in the chat. And for everyone credit union that signs up, Glenn will come to your credit union and just do a quick singing telegram. And so if you're interested in that, you can go check it out. But we do plan on making all the results of it for any credit union that signs up available to everyone for free. So, all right, I think we're ready. Glenn, what do you want to know? I mean, you've been freaking out about this crypto crash. So
I went through and dug through the numbers about it. I was just working on it for another project that I'm working on as well. And I'm sure you know this already, but after hitting a high of all time on November 10th of, I believe, just about $69,000, just a shade under 69,000. In the course of 6 weeks and 2 days, crypto fell by half, down to 33,000. So that's a drop by half. But I also read that that's the third time it's done that just since 2018. So, and if you really step back and take a look a little bit more broadly, for the year, for 2021, it was still up about as impressively as anybody could expect for any of their assets to be up. I think about 35 or 40%, if I'm not mistaken. So we've been seeing more and more, credit unions and other financial institutions getting involved in participating in the crypto space. NYDIG is one of the players that's made that more possible. And, in fact, I don't know if anybody saw, there was a full page ad that NYDIG took out on one of the back pages of the Wall Street Journal last week. And do I have it here? No, I don't have it right next to me. It's something like online banking used to seem like a crazy idea too, I think was the phrase that they used or something like that. And they had about 30 bank logos or FI logos, and I counted them. 8 of them were credit unions. It didn't say that they're all in production, but I think we can safely assume that they're at least under contract with NYDIG if they're showing the logo in a published advertisement, unless they're trying to compete with Elizabeth Holmes in terms of misrepresenting. But given the fact that that was probably all planned before crypto started going down, the question, and I think it's a somewhat loaded question, John, Mike, whoever, do credit unions need to rethink the way they're approaching it after they see the value drop by half in such a short period of time?
I agree with Lou.
Lou, what did Lou say? Lou said, run for the exits?
No, shaking your head. No, don't.
Yeah, Lou was shaking his head. I think, so let me start on why this crash is different than the last crash.
This time is different. There.
Yeah. So one of the things that's happened in the last year and a half is that a lot more institutional money has poured into the cryptoverse. By the way, I just coined the word cryptoverse and trademark it. Madison and or Melissa go buy the URL before right now. Before Zach gets to it.
He's already done
it. He's already on GoDaddy. So a lot more institutional money is poured into the cryptoverse. And as a result of that, the thinking of institutions is going to also become much more prevalent in the crypto market. And what I mean by that is if you've got institutions, hedge funds, folks, the ETF that was approved earlier, that's step one. And they're going to react in all of their investments in the same way. I don't see them reacting differently in the stock market than they would react with their crypto investments. So as a result, damn it, somebody already got it in 2009. But do they have with a K, cryptoverse? Try that. But so as a result, a lot of that institutional thinking has driven this down a bit more. The other side that is a little more familiar, but not as familiar, the last crypto crash we had was as a result of a big country, a communist country that starts with a C, basically banning it, if you remember. So China said, hey, no more crypto. And that was the next crash. They're perfectly fine for using it in terms of mining it and trying to control it, but they don't want their people using it because they can't track it. And that's, that could be something that they want to do. So now let's look at this time. That's a good idea. Crypto, CURYPTO. Good idea.
Anyway.
Crypto. But so who just banned it recently? That's a question. Another big country that likes to watch their people.
Wasn't it China?
Russia, right.
Oh, Russia.
They did it just on their way in to starting the Ukrainian buildup. And so why would they do that? Well, they would do that because as we've learned from previous experience with crypto, and particularly in Venezuela and some of the other, Colombia, Bogota, those kinds of places, that is a safe haven that folks can go to when they're afraid of the banks. Now, I'm not asserting that China or Russia will interfere with the banks in the Ukrainian, but that's not going to stop the good people of Kiev and the Ukrainians from moving their money if they're afraid of a potential invasion into that platform, which is why Russia probably bounced it. But when Russia takes a whole country offline and says, yeah, we're not doing this, well, that creates another market scare. Then you've got the falling joblessness and the normal stuff that's going on here in the United States. As a matter of fact, I think this Friday, the jobs market is anticipated to be way off the numbers they expected. For some reason, nobody wants to work anymore. I've been trying that myself. I've been trying to wean myself off work. I figure you could wean anything, right? I tried to wean my car off gas. But I think that's another big issue combined with inflation that has moved those investors back. And then with that in mind, it's also because we have more institutional folks invested in here. They're just using the same exact mentality, which, by the way, is not necessarily the right idea. I think Lou was shaking his head there. I don't think applying the same concept to cryptos as you do for traditional stocks, particularly securities, is a good idea because they're not the same. And then I think the final piece is there's a little bit of a hangover from, NFTs. And I think that, even though there's been quite the effort to explain it, there's still a lot of folks like you, Glenn, who look at, a Bored Ape yacht, thing and think, I just don't see how that's worth $165,000. I'm struggling with that. And so
I'm very old fashioned that way.
Yeah, you're like, well, I do see an awesome NFT behind you, which is that owl picture you have. We need to get on that. But the idea is that it's one of those things that NFTs, as far as art, definitely got out of hand. And as a result, there's a correction. So I think the reasons that this isn't exactly the same as the previous crash is because of the institutional money that's in there. I think for once it's being affected. It used to be when the stock market would go down, crypto would actually go up because it was the equivalent of hiding money in your mattress kind of a thing, right? But now, because we have so much institutional money, particularly around the ETFs and some of the other things. And then the final thing, and Glenn, you could speak to this better than I, we just had the report for the CBDC come out. And I think that even though it's not directly related, it portends it portends that the feds are going to get involved, or the Fed will get involved, and that also, I think, put a scare in people as well. So those are my thoughts. That's my 2 pieces of copper for you.
I think you make a good point at the end, and I figured we could maybe get into the Fed CBDC report a little bit later in the call. But you make a good point that a lot of people just don't distinguish, especially when it gets into the mass media. You're not distinguishing between the nuances, and there are significant differences between stable coins and altcoins and other cryptocurrencies, as well as the CBDC. But in the grand scheme of things, when people are first learning about them, they all sound the same. So the fact that they're getting more visibility, and to a great extent, in some cases, kind of negative visibility, I think definitely contributes to that as well. But
I also think that people are, with the stock market going down, I think people are taking gains, which is something we're going to look at in our innovation club, because up until this point, all of the documentation we have shows all the money going out and very little of it coming back, very, very little of it coming back. And all the reporting that we have currently in the crypto report. So, but we do know that people are taking gains out of, for example, one of the ones I'm sure of is it's a coin that's called, it used to be called Mana, not Mana. It used to be called Matic. Now it's Polygon. Polygon was a gaming coin that got up to about $2.15. It's back down to like 130, but that still hasn't dropped all its gains. That's the other thing to remember, is none of this has gotten all the way back down to where it was in, say, 2017. So, it seems to rise up, correct itself, and then build from there again.
Yeah, I'm sure there's exceptions in terms of the various coins out there, but if you look at Bitcoin and not Bitcoin in one big slug, it looks like the two are basically mirroring each other in terms of percentage gains and losses. And
that's because so many of the coins are built on top of Ethereum. And so as Ethereum goes, so does many of these other coins.
So from that standpoint, I mean, I see Cynthia on the call. I don't know how many other credit unions here have really started to get involved with providing crypto capabilities. And that's the other thing that we continue to see. And the data isn't so new that it doesn't take into account, the last 6 weeks of activity. But all the research shows that the majority of American consumers would prefer to engage in crypto through their financial institution.
Yes.
And if that's the case, then obviously, if you want to be the primary financial institution, you want to make sure that you're offering that capability.
Well, and I'll let Cynthia speak for herself here, but one of the things that Cynthia and I have talked about quite a bit is, if we're going to make loans and use crypto as collateral, which I think is the future, then we have to understand what the asset is, and we have to be able to value the asset, and we have to prove the members own the asset. And this is no different than what we went through to do stock trading, that's, or not stock trading, but to give stock loans based on assets that are, in the stock market and that sort of thing. So I think that, but part and parcel to that, it's no different in the sense that we have to understand it. It's not the same in the sense I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying that it's another process, and there will be people who have created wealth in the crypto verse, again, just using my term, that, are going to expect the credit union to honor that and to say, hey, yeah, I do recognize that, and I won't recognize as much as you want to recognize. I'm not going to say you have $10 million, but, in our estimation, based on, our very regulated and conservative estimate, we could use that or collateralize X of that, to a percentage of that. It's likely going to be a low percentage. And we've already seen that in the market, but to the point, there are people right now that are making more money in a crypto investment, sort of a crypto DDA account, than they ever could in any checking account or savings account in any credit union. You can get up to 5 to 8% return on your Bitcoin or your crypto, even when it drops this far. And that's still better than any credit union that I know of right now in terms of their returns on their savings and their checking. And if someone knows different, please don't hesitate to hit me. But that's where we are.
What would you speculate, the point about, you're not going to lend out dollar for dollar on the current balance based on the trading value? We've seen crypto go down, or Bitcoin, or probably others have gone even more severely, but gone down by roughly half multiple times, but not a lot more than half. I mean, just if you were going to speculate, would you say a third, a quarter? I mean, how much would you think you'd picture potentially being the potential lending collateral there?
Zach says 50 to 70 a reprice. Now, one thing, he makes a good point. For example, the guys that are giving that 8%, as the crypto goes down, they do reserve the right to reprice and to make you top it up, is what they call it, top up. And so, but my thought would be that we're going to have to invent a new asset class that's going to involve machine learning. And what's going to happen is it could be one of those things where your collateral could affect your asset loan, and you could have a fluctuating loan amount based on where crypto is. And that could be built on a machine learning algorithm that's accepted by, who knows, the government or whatever. Whereas it's going to, like an LOC. Yep. Like a line of credit, but it's going to drift, and it's going to drift based on the market.
Interesting.
And there may be smart contracts involved if we do it right. And that may take care of it in and of itself.
Are you differentiating Bitcoin from, I mean, almost by definition, anything else winds up looking thinly traded by comparison, but some of them actually have, a pretty solid base of ongoing.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin is more like a gold. I see Bitcoin more like a security, like gold. I see things like Ethereum to be more like an actual stock where it has a function. So, for example, if you're investing in Johnson & Johnson, that, Johnson & Johnson has X amount of verticals, and those verticals are related to, these various things, and you can track that market, and then you can determine the value of that stock. That's similar to the coins that are going to be in play, even for the Crayon, I predict. I think the Crayon is going to have some sort of coin. I've often thought that, and I say coin, but I'll say token, but I've often thought that there's a tremendous opportunity for shared branching to be redeveloped around a system like this, where instead of just assuming that Crayons will, out of their own goodwill, will take care of these other people and create this thing, that there's a way to track it all and create a smart contract that creates compensation, as well as added functionality in the shared branching model. Then that could all be arbitrated with a coin. And that's what they attempted to do with the ATM model, but it failed because it doesn't have the granularity, nor does it have the ability to deal with, folks sort of gaming the system, which this will overcome.
Lou put a pretty long thing, I think, well thought out in the chat about how crypto varies by coin, and you mentioned USDC and PAX is in terms of a better way to actually deal with the means of exchange.
Cross border, I would agree.
And I know USDC is a stable coin. I'm not recalling, is PAX a stable coin also, Lou? You're nodding yes. So yes. I mean, from that standpoint, I totally agree with you. I guess the challenge is, and this is where the Venmos and PayPals come through and get into the mix, because they create the the visibility and the ubiquity for Bitcoin. But it feels to me a little bit like having your cake and eating it too, because on the other hand, no one gets excited about USDC because they can't make a quick buck. So, it's not going to go down by half, but it's not going to go up by 3 times either. So it depends on exactly why you're in the mix. If you're here for the trading, the trading efficiency, then totally agree. But, I think some of that becomes a market segmentation to see just how serious people are about using it for anything other than a speculative asset.
It gets to a deeper cultural problem that we have, which is, and you saw it rear its ugly head during Wall Street Bets, which is the current generation doesn't perceive that there's a good way to create wealth. Now, the greatest generation said, we're going to take it all when we come back, and we're going to put it in this bank, and they're going to give me a 2 or 1 or whatever the percentage was, and we'll sit on it, and one day it'll grow, and we'll have an egg. And of course, they had pensions to rely on. They had things and tools that we do not have anymore. So the current generation is out trying to find a way to create wealth in the same way that their predecessors, their family did. And they see this as an opportunity to do that, to create wealth. without, and they're going to continue to look, to Lou's point. I mean, if not this, then they'll go back to Powerball. You're not going to stop the behavior. Which you can, that's part of the failings of us as a country in not teaching financial health and financial, education anymore. And really, I didn't get taught that much. I just got taught how to balance a checkbook by a very angry lady who was a typing teacher that did not like me because my handwriting was so bad. Yeah, our typing teacher was also like our balance the checkbook lady. It was part of I was part of a group like FBLA. Is that it? Future Business Leaders of America, something like that. And she kicked me out because she said, "You'll never be a future business leader of America."
If she could only see you now.
Yeah. And she would go, "I told you." That would be her response. She would say, see what you did. But no, they just, so Lou, to your point, I think it's squeezing a balloon, right? It's just moving the air somewhere else. They're still going to look for that. One of the things I thought was interesting in the crypto market was the old, and you showed this to me, Glenn. It's like everybody puts in almost like a lottery kind of a thing that used to happen. It used to happen, I guess, in the Depression era, where everybody would put into a fund and everybody would sort of win. I can't remember the name of it, but
I know what you're talking about. It was, I can track it down. It was an article in Fortune, and I haven't gotten an update on that product, but it was a really interesting model.
But it was really popular for a bit. So I don't know. I'm going to stop speaking, and I think we should get some. Let's let Lou talk. I'm interested in what Lou has to say because I know Lou's got a mind for this. Has been watching it as long as I have. Go ahead, Lou.
I appreciate that. May I share a screen?
Please.
All right.
I mean, as long as it's appropriate. It can't be like a, like a cat.
No.
Okay.
So I have been speaking with some of our member credit unions 1, 2, sometimes 3 times a week, varying levels of like just what is it? What should we be doing? Some credit unions, recent conversation is, yeah, if I just go with NYDIG as an example, my members have the same thing, have the same capabilities that they do right now through Venmo, et cetera. They can buy Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin and a few others. And that's it, they just hold it. But going back a ways, why should credit unions care? Because there's a lot of money flowing out. I think this is what John was getting at with, when I share my screen, I can't see you guys. But this is a graph of debit only transactions with Coinbase. So it is just the tip of the iceberg, right? We're not even looking at money going into Venmo and PayPal to purchase crypto because we can't ascertain how much of that is to split a dinner check versus to buy crypto. And we're not looking at all the other exchanges. Look at, and there's the point of the graph was supposed to be, it's growing, right? The amount of transactions and dollar volume is growing, but here's the part that really bugs me, and this is what my diatribe that I put in the chat there. Look at the 2 peaks. One was in May, and John just alluded to one was in November. May, and this is a little bit delayed. The crypto passed 63,000, I think it was in May, and passed, would you say, John, passed 67,000 in November.
Yep.
It's a Powerball mentality. People see Powerball go over 100 million, and everybody goes out and buys a ticket. Your odds of winning has not increased at all. And why didn't you want to play when it was 25 million? So people are treating Bitcoin, if they treated Bitcoin like a alternate investment, and John, you said it's like gold. I somewhat disagree, although it is an alternative to the stock market. And if that's what you meant, then I'll buy that. But no, too many people, look at this, that many transactions at the peak. In hindsight, buying crypto at the peak is not a good investment strategy. And yet too many credit union members are doing that. I'll stop sharing now. But
so I want to jump on and show you something. I think it'll make you interested. But I have to ask a question first. Alan, you seem to be in charge of the place. I would like to show some of your reports on the screen.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think it's giving anything away. I know Cynthia and Ty are good with it, but I need to ask you. Okay, so this is a report that we actually run in the IC and we're building out. So this is a little bit of a preview of the crypto report. Can you see it, Lou?
Yes.
So you can see now you're talking about this. So numbers below the line are what's coming out and numbers above the line are what's coming in. And here are the crypto prices for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And you can see Now, what's interesting is we go in here to your point, and we just we check off Coinbase, which is kind of the number one piece there. And you can see we're looking for a whole lot more of these. We're finding that members somehow are finding a whole lot of these things. They're finding the Gemini. So if we just go to Gemini, look at like big money coming out in Gemini for a particular, for particular credit. It's not massive amounts, but still a good cost. And so I'm making your point basically, Lou. And again, just like you said, these dips they don't follow the dips. Look at the activity here, and there's the dip. It's when it gets in the news and people think it's FOMO is what it is. For those of you that don't know, FOMO means fear of missing out. Kind of like YOLO, you only live once, which is also, I think, a factor in this. But that's kind of what we're seeing as we go on. And this is, by the way, a preview of what we're trying to do in the crypto report. So I just wanted to validate what you're seeing and even show you that there are more. Like Binance is an interesting one. The only credit we have for that was this one. But all these coins are ones we found over time and are tracking the footprints for.
Wow.
So yes, there is money leaving the credit union, and it is, I think, our duty in some ways to prevent that, not prevent it, but to make sure that they know what they're doing. And I think that's where Lou was going, is make sure that they're not sort of just following this trend. And that's part of the financial health and welfare of our members. Lou, did you have another point to make on that? That was a great point.
I have spent as long as 90 minutes with a couple of credit unions board of directors, because they're interested in understanding, is this the best, right? The purpose of credit unions is credit unions exist in the best interest of their members. And so I try to get the board of directors to come to a conclusion, is offering crypto related services, which at the moment is kind of singled out to buying and selling Bitcoin and Ethereum and a few others, but is that in the best interest of members? And different answers from different credit unions. Some boards believe that they're not going to prevent their members, and you just showed all the money flowing in and out of the exchanges, but they're also not going to facilitate it. Some credit unions, Unify, perfect example, happy to plant the flag and say we're the first credit union through the NYDIG partnership, very publicly stating that. So they believe that it is in the best interest of their members. Plus, there's benefits to the credit union as well, but their members get better rates in a more secure environment, in a completely compliant manner, as opposed to some of those exchanges that you showed. Those are outside of the purview of the New York Department of Financial Services, which issues a BIT license.
Yep.
So, and when you do that, now you can put money in that exchange. And then there's no OFAC checks, there's no AML, so you can do things with your whatever coin you're collecting there. That's the part that gets eliminated by the credit union offering a potentially better service. But it needs to go with credit union education that, like, don't treat this like a lottery. This is another form of investment. We used to say it was a lot more volatile, but seeing the stock market come down and Bitcoin come down, maybe more correlated. Maybe a little bit more volatile, but definitely more correlated than we've ever seen before, because the institutional investors, like you said.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Lou, just for everybody who's going, who's that really smart guy talking? Introduce yourself real fast and where you're at these days.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, sorry about that. My name's Lou Grilly. I was, just brief history, Amex, FIS, CSCU, and more recently, last 2 years, PSCU. I'm in the innovation group focused on all things payments. I'm a payments geek. And then about a year and a half ago, we got one of our owners asked the question, what is going to be the impact of Bitcoin on my debit interchange? And then that took me down this rabbit hole of, well, Bitcoin, it's not really being 2 years ago, not being really spent anywhere. So probably not, but now you're going to look at stablecoin, and then what's going to be the impact of a central bank digital currency, if it should roll out in the US, on interchange. And so it took me down all these rabbit holes, and I had and NFTs and how is that going to impact interchange. One kind of I'm being maybe a little facetious here, but one bad result of this money flowing into the into Coinbase, that graph that I showed previously, is some credit unions are going, yay, that's getting me debit interchange. Remember, we're looking at debit only, we're not looking at ACH because we don't have that data. And they're seeing every time there's a transaction, that's debit interchange. Well, okay, that's one-time debit interchange, but that money's flowing out of your credit union and into something that's completely independent from you. But there's another impact to interchange. So that's what I've been kind of focusing on for my side gig for the last at least year and a half is credit unions and crypto and all things crypto and stablecoin and CBDC and NFTs and things like that.
Yeah, and the document we showed you included wires and ACHs, and if you don't include the wires, you're really missing out because there are people just wiring big bucks. They're taking big chunks out, and that really diminishes your DDAs, right? It brings you down, and it also impacts your ability to loan. And so it's like having another reg card or one of these platforms. But you just mentioned something that I think is a great segue, which is the CDB, the credit union selling CDB oil. No, I'm just kidding. Credit union selling CDBC, which is the big piece that came out. Maybe Glenn, if you don't mind, can you summarize what it is, what just came out? And we mentioned earlier that it potentially had an impact on pricing as well. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So, and did I turn my mic back on? Yes, I did. Okay, good. The Fed had been promising this report for some time. It finally came out, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. Depending on how closely you follow the space, it could be construed as kind of a ho-hum, because basically when I read it, almost anything they said probably could have been said 6 months ago. On the other hand, they're moving the conversation forward and kind of setting some ground rules and rules of engagement that allow us to have a meaningful conversation going forward. It, again, just showing how early they are in the overall process. It ends with basically a 22-question RFI asking for dialogue and input, and they're extremely broad questions. Should a CBDC, pay interest? Why or why not? But it also kind of cut off at the pass a couple of the objections that were coming up pretty heavily. One was this notion that the rumor was popping up that the Fed was going to start issuing consumer accounts directly and issuing CBDCs directly to them. They said, and there was one pending bill in the House prohibiting them from doing it. They didn't specifically mention that bill, but they came out and said, we don't have authority to do that today. So they pretty much put that to rest. The other big concern around CBDCs is the government having access to all financial information. This one they didn't, I don't think, have a really strong answer on, but they said, no, privacy remains paramount. But they also made it clear that from a KYC standpoint, for avoidance of illicit activities and use and things like that, they want to have at least enough to take care of those things. So they made it pretty clear that they would rather see some kind of legislative mandate to move forward, and that they're very early on and haven't made any decisions. And when I think about things like Fed Now and everything else and how long it takes for these things to move, my first thought is we are easily 3, if not 4 or 5 years away from seeing anything meaningful here. But I think the conversation is starting to move.
So I had and I want to ask you a question about this, but I'm going to throw a little brick or a log on that fire. So I just want to change my license to be here in Tennessee since we're selling our house in Colorado. We're still going to live between the two, but we'll probably spend a little more time here. And what I discovered was there's this new thing which is coming out. Anybody heard of Real ID?
Yeah.
Okay. So I find that fascinating because it is a form of the digital ID that we were discussing some time ago. And when I look at sort of these various tentacles of the government as it moves forward in these different ways, I do see a concerted effort, and I wonder if those two things would tie together. The second thing is critics of the CBDC would say, hey, you've already accomplished all this KYC garbage. Man, you go into Coinbase now and you try to get something, my God, we'd like to have blood samples, and they're already redoing I've been a member of Coinbase for like 10 years or something. And they're, now they're running all kinds of other stuff. They're reporting you, they got the SARS. I mean, all of that legislation has come to pass, except for, to Lou's point, these these exchanges that are out of the country, right? That are not governed by, for that side. And for example, Coinbase will offer you now a 4% APY on the platform. And they had it out there, then they took it away, and now it's back again. And part of it is because people were saying, well, why did it go away and why can others do it? Well, Coinbase is now publicly traded. And so as a result, it's got SEC oversight that it didn't have before, but it's back. And so, and I'm just going to see if I can pull that up and look at it here real fast. I'll pull it up on the screen. But my question to Lou and others who are payments geeks is, I don't know that this is about payments at times. I sometimes think it's about, oh, here it is. I can bring it up right now. Oh, I think this is my actual account, but I don't care. You guys can see it, whatever. I don't have everything in here. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
So here is a 4% APY on the interest. I think it's based on what they call vaulted transactions. No, it can only be done on I guess particular transactions that can be put through. I have to learn more about it, but they definitely did get back around where they were able to go in and provide the interest rate across the assets. And so again, I asked the question of what's to keep somebody from looking at this and going, well, hell, why would I keep my money here when at least I'd be earning something here, in these various assets? And I don't know. It's
USD coin. You have no appreciation or depreciation risk.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think I have $1 in there right now.
But as Mr. Risk Averse here, I'm not so crazy about earning 5% on Bitcoin if I'm afraid it's going to go down by 40%.
Right, but USDC coin ain't going to stop you.
Oh, and if they're willing.
And so that was my whole point: is why would you not? Why would you not do that? I mean, what's keeping you from? I mean, Alan, I'll throw it to you a bit, but what's the current rate on your savings and checking?
I don't even want to admit. No, it's our regular share account, 10 basis points, money market. Oh, checking. We have a 3% checking account.
There you go. So that's close, and that's good. But you are definitely out of the norm for that, would you say?
Well, we only pay, to be clear, we only pay 3% on the first 10,000, and it requires direct deposit.
Ah, okay. Which is smart.
Strike me as that those are not that onerous. I think that's a fair trade.
I do too. But my point is okay, but I don't have anything I need to do to get 4% on the next 10,000. So why would I keep any more of that in True West? And Alan, I'm not knocking you. I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm trying to see what consumers are seeing. I'm trying to get my head around what people are going to do or might not do. And that's the thing I kind of see is.
If it's not offered in Bitcoin and Ethereum, though, I mean, I'm just wondering if it's almost I want to call bait and switch.
Yeah,
do you even care?
That's exactly what I was thinking. If it's on a USD coin, a stable coin,
yeah,
I get it. But the volatility around the currency relative to the US dollar could wipe out, that 4%.
And that's where people seem to want to put their money. I don't think there's a whole lot of holdings sitting in USD coin. The people who are transacting.
Yeah, I know. We don't have large dollars where somebody's investing at, 10 basis points or 20 basis points. What we have is kind of the core savings that any household needs. Our depositors are really risk averse because the money they have with us is the money they need to, get them by until the next paycheck.
Yeah. The one other thing I'll mention about the CBDC report from the Fed, well, actually a couple of things in terms of the way it's kind of coming around. I thought it was interesting that it sounds like, there's almost a concerted effort to kind of, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, I guess, might be the way you might want to think about it. To the point that you were making, John, Coinbase, every place else, the information that we're talking about that, everybody's so afraid, credit cards and debit card transactions have all of that now. They might have to subpoena for it, but it's there. And as you say, people, but cryptocurrency, you can't see it. Well, yeah, maybe if you're, a heavy programmer or working with an offshore account or something like that. And you can do that, with other accounts going offshore with the US dollar as well. But, even like you say, if you're on Coinbase or somebody like that, they're trackable too. So I'm not really sure how much more it adds. And if they're not going to be doing it directly, if the Fed's not going to be issuing the accounts directly for the consumers, they're going to have to go through the banks the same way they always would have. Other than if there's a belief, and get back into trusting government, can they slide some code in there that you're not aware of that allows them to always look in the back door? I mean, that's entirely possible too. But I felt it was kind of a concerted campaign, media campaign recently by some of the Bitcoin proponents. I'm not even going to post the link to it because I don't really want to give it any more air, oxygen. But Newsweek had an opinion piece. I forget who the woman was with, but it was some Bitcoin type based company. I think the headline was, "A CBDC would be the end of American freedom." I mean, can you get more blunt than that? And I thought there were a couple of very significant logical holes in what she said, where either she wrote it before the Fed study came out, or she was looking to be intentionally misleading. I'm not sure which. But I think it's going to get ugly. Let's put it that way. I think there's going to be a lot of jockeying for, mind share of something that the vast majority of people aren't paying close enough attention to. So it's a hearts and minds discussion to get people on one side or the other.
So while you were doing that, I pulled up Gemini. Gemini is not publicly traded. And they are under the purview of the New York Stock Exchange, or the entities that I think Lou mentioned. And they do have just about an 8% return on just a regular USDC coin.
I've still got to wonder. I mean, if they're able to pay that much, it still says to me that they're just not attracting that much. Because I would think.
Well, no, I think their other side. How do you pay interest at the credit union? You pay interest by making loans. I think that as long as crypto keeps selling like it does, then these guys are able to pay this kind of interest because they're flipping the other side of crypto. That's got to be it.
But on other coins, not on USD coins.
No, they're hedging bets on but that's that part of the education that we have to do so that members know, hey, how are they paying these high rates? And it's not because they're giving loans. They don't have any loans. What they're doing, well, they do have a credit card, and that credit card does give you, what Zach said almost. I think it's 50 to 70% of the value of the crypto you have. But my point is that they're making these things. It's out there. I mean, so yeah, maybe Coinbase isn't doing 7.9%, but Gemini is the number 2 on our little list, and they absolutely are doing it.
Well, maybe you can all educate me. When a member gives us dollars, we turn around and lend it out. We don't just sit on the funds.
Right.
That's where we get the capital to loan. So I'm guessing that when somebody deposits crypto with Gemini, they lend it out or they do something with those funds.
Yeah, I think they buy batches of crypto so that they can resell it in the exchange.
So I guess the question, I mean, we have regulators from the NCUA who come in and beat us up every year and make sure we're on the straight and narrow. And I guess my question is, would Gemini have that level of regulatory oversight? And I think the masses of people, they want to know their money's safe, and that regulatory oversight is really valuable to them. If somebody's got $2,000 or $3,000, that's pretty typical at True West, whether they get 8% on it or 0 isn't going to make or break them.
No, not at all.
But what they want to know is that if they come into our branch or digitally connect with us, the money's there.
Yep. No, but the thing is that FDIC and the other things, NCUA and the other things that were created to protect us from that are no longer, they're not taught. They don't understand that. They don't know how much money we have. I remember we used to have to move money around for people at the credit union to make sure that all the FDIC insurance standards were all up to date, right? You had to create new accounts so that you could do that. But I don't think anybody even knows that anymore. And so that's my point is I think you're right, but I don't know that the next generation sees value in not losing their cash, and neither did people in 1936 when the banks all shut down, and when you came back you had half, right? So there's a point that you're making, and it may be that that's the answer to this, is to start teaching that, to make sure that, not to prevent them from doing it, but to make sure that they understand the risk level. I think that's what Lou is sort of saying. But I also think, to his point, I like what he just said. There's more interest than there is understanding when it comes to crypto. And Lou, I've been doing board meeting after board meeting, explaining, crypto in general. And one of the first things I do is exactly what you did, is, okay, let's run this report so you can see what's going on, because without going into this eyes wide open in terms of your membership. And to be fair, what we showed, Alan, that's a trickle. That's a blip in your world in terms of the money going in and out. So it's not like you're sitting around freaking out about this. And same for Visions. It's not a ton of money, but if you don't watch it, it could turn into that. Venmo started very small, so did PayPal. Now they're 1 and 2, some of the bigger people that money go out to. Go ahead.
Yeah, just for the last few years, it has grown exponentially, not to a dramatic size, but it's growing exponentially.
Yeah. And what tells me that people don't know about the FDIC limits and things like that is, I remember when we talked to them, we talked to members as we would move that money around. We'd call them and go, because I remember I had to write a program that found all these people. And then I had to write a program that like automatically gave them like an optimized, here's how the money goes, and move it all around, in the system. And I remember, getting explained to me why I had to do that. And so I just thought everybody else knew that, and I was just stupid. But everybody we called was like, what are you talking about? Why do I have to move this all around? So clearly they didn't know either that, there were limits, and we had to create a second account. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, Alan, I'm sure, do you guys still do that for folks? Do you have a group that does that?
Yeah, for a small minority of members.
Yeah, it's people who just have a lot, but they're also some of your most valuable members, and and it's our job to take care of their money. And so I just found that fascinating that they didn't know either, which tells me, I would assume that someone at that level would at least understand the FDIC insurance and what that means to have that much money, but they didn't most of the time. So that tells me the average consumer doesn't have much of a chance of understanding that as well.
I wanted to comment on one of actually two things out here. First, Lou, and then something that Patty had said also. The fact that there is no NCUA insurance, to me, that is the single biggest reputational risk I think we're dealing with. That is factually correct. And that's the guidance that the NCUA provided. Get involved in this, but make sure you've got clear disclosures that this is sitting separately. It's through a partnership. That's all fine and good. But as we know, people don't read disclosures. And whether or not it's been laid out and all protections are in place, where the credit union's held harmless, that's still not going to help if people get mad and start tweeting about it and stuff like that. Patty, you had made a point, I think it's scrolled off at this point, that CBDCs are basically the polar opposite of the original idea of a cryptocurrency. And I agree with that. I think that that's one of those challenges to me. That's kind of just a natural tension there in terms of trying to mainstream it. You wind up taking away some of the original context. And I remember I don't think the concept of a CBDC even existed back then, but I remember I think it was an NCUA roundtable I spoke at about 6 or 7 years ago, where one of my predictions was, in order for the whole notion of these cryptocurrencies to become mainstream, the original proponents are going to get very upset and say, oh, you've just undermined everything it was all about. Well, it's kind of what I think might be happening here if the CBDC becomes the way that it happens. And if it doesn't, then I think we probably are talking about a somewhat more niche solution, but that niche can be pretty big. I mean, it's a meaningful enough niche to make it worthwhile.
So I want to thank Lou, because he just connected some dots that my brain was incapable of connecting. So Gemini is owned by the Winklevoss twins. And of course, Gemini is the zodiac sign of the twins. I don't know why I was too stupid to see that. Thank you, Lou. I should have known. I knew, I know I've actually met the Winklevoss twins more than once. I should have maybe put those dots together. Well, we're coming to the end here, and I guess I'd love to keep this conversation going. When this posts, if there's more questions or more interest in it, my suggestion is that Cynthia is on the call, and Cynthia Schroeder is working with Visions, and she has a digital assets group that's growing. Lots of people have been attending. We're getting lots of folks on to help explain things. So, if you reach out to Big, if you want to hit me at jb@big-cu or just reach out to our website, we will get you in touch with Cynthia. And she is really pushing and I think leading the movement in this space. We just talked about joining an R3 work group. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that, what's going on there. But the bottom line is, I believe it's time to start developing a strategy around crypto assets for credit unions, or at least start talking about it. I don't know what it looks like. I know that I'm starting to get my mind around what that might be a bit, and certainly happy to talk with folks who are in the midst of that. But it's going to be sort of one more arrow in the quiver, or maybe one more block in the wall, one more brick in the wall, isn't it a song, that we have to sort of deal with. And there's going to need to be a strategy. And what that strategy will provide is sort of the tenets of what the credit union's willing to do risk-wise, where, why, the why, the where, the how, the education, so that the staff isn't blindsided. Because I think that's part of what's happening with the I don't know, is they don't know to say, well, you can move all your money over to Gemini, but just understand that, there isn't any insurance there. And if if crypto falls apart, that's how Gemini is paying you your 8%, then you're not going to be getting that 8%. You'll probably get nothing. But until we train our employees and our staff and ourselves around that, and I'll leave with this, it's always, not understanding crypto and working at a credit union is a little bit like not understanding how Netflix streaming works and, working at Blockbuster. And that didn't end well for the Blockbuster guys. So that's my 2 cents, which means it's good you're here and you're learning. Guys like Lou are incredible resources for this sort of thing. I just highly encourage you, wherever you figure it out, go find out. So, and always, Glenn is top notch. And also, the next episode about how to sell CBD oil is coming. We'll work with you guys on that. I know everyone's interested. So thanks so much.